Anytime I meet somebody, whether they know who I am or, have no clue who I am, and they ask me what I do and I tell them I'm a mycologist, the first question they always ask is, what's a mycologist, right? Most people have no idea what a mycologist is. After you explain to them what a mycologist is, the next question they always ask is, what's your favorite part about doing what you do? Now, every time somebody asks me that question, it's so hard because I'm a little bit different than your average mycologist. But when it comes to strictly just being a mycologist, my favorite part is traveling, the adventure, right? Getting out there, finding these psychedelic mushrooms, out in the wild, having no idea where the journey's gonna take you. Even though it's the most exciting part of the job, it's also one of the scariest parts of the job. You know where you're gonna start your adventure, but you never know where that journey is gonna take you or where it's gonna end. And this adventure right here is no different.
Crystals falling from the sky, it was a starry night when I freed my mind. How can you deny that I turn the light? Let me free your mind. Crystals falling from the sky, it was a starry night.
Now, if you ask any mycologist, biologist, any ologist at all, any of the sciences, what's one of the top places to go to and explore in the entire world? They're gonna tell you it's Costa Rica. Costa Rica, its wildlife, its fungi, its plant life is some of the most unique and diverse in the entire world. And a lot of the species of mushrooms that grow there are not available to us on the market. So when I started this web series, I knew one of the places I had to hit was Costa Rica, and that's where we're going in this adventure. So like any of the other adventures, we wake up and we head off to the airport. Now, I knew there was gonna be different challenges that hit us when we did this trip. We're kind of going into the unknown. There's not too much you could plan for. You could always try to plan in advance, but really when it comes to going and finding these mushrooms and going into countries that you're really not familiar with, you could only plan so much, and the rest of it, you kind of just need to figure out as you go. Now, contrary to the belief, whether you're me or you're a new mycologist or a mycologist that's even been doing this forever, you don't know what every type of mushroom in every single place is. And if someone tells you that they do, they're lying to you. So I've been reading up for months preparing for this trip on the specific type of fungi that grow in the certain areas of Costa Rica. From the time I knew that we was gonna do this trip all the way to my flight landing in San Jose, I was reading up every piece of information that I could possibly get on Costa Rica and its fungi. As soon as we land in the airport, it had a magical smell of piss and body odor, if that makes sense. There was so many people from all around the world gathered in there, half of them not wearing deodorant, everybody's sweating. Of course, the air conditioner isn't working. So I just wanted to get all of our camera equipment, get our bags, get our Jeeps, get out of there because the place really did smell. But of course, I was happy to be there because this was the start of the adventure. As soon as you're in San Jose, it's very, very busy. It's a big city. There's a lot of people, a lot of cars. But as soon as you get away from the San Jose area, it starts to open up to this paradise. There's waterfalls, lush jungles, and way less people. You could see everybody's really spaced out. There's tons of land, and it's absolutely amazing. And look at these guys. I believe they're called Coati is the name of them. Absolutely gorgeous, beautiful little things. This is part of the adventure. These people are feeding them peanuts. And literally, this is just on the side of the road. One of the things I was really surprised about was the way people drive in Costa Rica. Now, these are some of the most narrow roads that are thousands and thousands of feet up in elevation. There's no guardrails. So if you get bumped, you could literally fly off the side of the cliff and nobody gave a shit. Everybody just drove like it was regular. Like it was the 110 in California or something. You know, it was absolutely insane. Of course, to make things worse, as we're driving, it starts downpouring, which always adds a little bit of spice to the crazy roads that are out there in Costa Rica. So we keep going and we're getting way up in elevation now. And of course, all cell service, all mobile Wi-Fi, everything like that just completely falls off the face of the earth. Now we're trying to figure out where we're going off of maps. We started to lose sunlight, but luckily we made it to where we had to go. All right, guys. So after that crazy car ride, we had to travel about 4 hours. We got lost. When you're in countries where you're off the grid, where there's nothing but mountains, volcanoes, rainforest, you really can't rely on GPS or Wi-Fi or anything like that. So things could get pretty hairy, but regardless to say, we finally made it. We're in the La Ajuela province, which is in the northern part of the country, and this is the wetlands part of the country. This is where the rainforest is, and this is where we need to be for what we're trying to do. As you move further south, it gets more dry when you get around the San Jose area, but regardless, I got a few hours of sunlight left. I need to make about a 2-hour trek that way while the sun is still up. Let's get going, because this is definitely a place you don't want to get caught at night, because if you get caught out here at night, bad things could happen. There's a lot of scary animals out there: cougars, panthers, poisonous snakes, poisonous spiders, poisonous frogs, you name it. Whatever's out there will fucking eat you. So we need to get going, set up camp before we do anything else, and then we could scout the area. So let's go. So once you get up in elevation, the roads turn into dirt roads that pretty much hug the sides of cliffs and mountains and stuff like that. So we could have drove to the location that we wanted to get to, but the problem was when we drove, we found out that the road was actually washed out. So they got some flash flooding that completely took down the sides of cliffs and threw dirt all over the main road. So what we ended up doing was we ended up parking the vehicles, and we found out that we could actually walk around. It would have been a lot better if we could have just drove, but as you guys could see, there's just tons and tons of rocks. We had to follow this river all the way up, and there was no way that the Jeeps were gonna make it over all these rocks to where we had to go. So we just started trekking it all the way up this river, walking really slow. It took about 2 hours for us to finally get to the end, but this is where we encountered the first wildlife of Costa Rica. So right now I'm hearing one of the local species called the Howler Monkey up in these trees somewhere. I'm trying to see if I can spot it for you guys. The Howler Monkey is one of the most craziest monkeys in the world. It makes this insane sound that sounds like a monster is up in the trees. We got to see them almost every single day that we was there, the entire time. But the next thing we came across really scared the hell out of me. That's absolutely terrifying. Oh my God, I can't stand spiders. Absolutely cannot stand spiders. I don't know where the fear came from, to be honest with you, but I think it started with the movie Arachnophobia when I was a kid. I have no idea. But seeing spiders this big is just absolutely terrifying, especially knowing that you're gonna be out there with them all night. You know, they're gonna be all over the place. So, you know, it's something you have to deal with really, really fast and get used to it. You have to remember, you're in the jungle, you're in their space, they're not in yours. So you have to try to be as respectful as you can. You have to be careful where you're stepping, because you don't want to step on one and hurt it accidentally. So we tried to be as easy as we could on our trek up there.
All right, guys, here's a special treat. It's not what we're looking for, but on our journey, we're gonna stop and look at every mushroom we possibly can. So inside here, if we move these out the way, you could see some white mushrooms growing on this tree root. This is really cool. They're very common. You'll see them all over the place, usually growing on tree roots or decaying wood. And sometimes you could find them in ginormous clusters that could go on for feet in circumference. Really cool little mushroom, but let's keep going. We have a long trek ahead of us. And like I said, I don't want to get stuck out here tonight. You've already seen some of the things that are out here at night, and I'm sure a lot more come out. So let's get to base camp. We need to set up camp so we could hold over the night and then start fresh tomorrow.
You know, this was just one of the fungi that we seen while we was trekking up there, but we seen many, many more. But really, at the end of the day, the sunlight was against us. We was losing it really fast. In Costa Rica, the sun goes down really, really early, and it comes up really early because of the position to the equator. So they get really early sunrises, but they also get really early sunsets. So typically about 7 o'clock at night, it's complete darkness. You could see the stars. And then the sun's coming up around 5 o'clock in the morning. So like I said, we had to get going because we didn't want to get stuck out there at night.
All right, guys. So sun went down about an hour ago. We just found the area that's nice and flat. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put up some hammocks. We're gonna put some mosquito nets over the hammocks and maybe even start a fire. And we're gonna call it a night. We trekked for hours today, but we made it very, very close to the area that we wanna check out tomorrow, that we wanna go forage. There's a lot of wild cows, a lot of wild horses. So it's looking really promising. As you guys seen, we got a nice rainfall, which is great for mushroom hunting. At the same time, it's a double-edged sword. It's really good for mushroom foraging. The best time to go look for mushrooms is the morning after you get a heavy rain. But at the same time, the bugs are out like crazy. The mosquitoes are out like crazy. And man, they're eating us up. But it's all right. We're going to get them bug nets over the hammocks and we're going to sleep under the stars tonight. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a good night. I'm going to try to eat something. I'm excited about that. So right now I'm going to call it a night and I'm going to check in with you guys in the morning. So that was a crazy night. Slept out under the stars. It was absolutely amazing. Poisonous frogs. There was bugs all over the place. And at some point in time, something big walked through the camp. We tried to turn on the infrared camera and catch it, but we didn't see it. There's too much jungle around us, so anything could hide anywhere. But it's really early. It's like 5 a.m. here in Costa Rica. The sun comes up really, really early, and we're about to have some breakfast, and we're about to hit them cow pastures. I'm so excited that you guys are gonna get to share this with me, and I can't wait to see what we find. You know, it would be a treat if we could find some Psilocybe Aztec Quorum, which is one of the rarest mushrooms in this area, but I would really love to find one so I could bring it back to the States and give the spores to the community. So I'd be super pumped to find that and bring it back with the family. This has been an adventure so far. I can't wait to see what the rest of this trip has in store for us. But before we burn any daylight, let's go.
So what we ended up doing was we hiked towards the cows. Finally, we got to the pastures and we was about to step on the property when the smallest man in the world came up on the biggest horse. So he came up asking, what we was doing, if we needed help. We thought that these were just wild pastures where there was wild cows and stuff like that, but it ended up belonging to somebody. Not this man, but it ended up belonging to somebody he knew. They're not used to seeing people with all this camera equipment trying to come in the backside of a property to step onto a pasture where they got their livestock. They don't know if you're trying to steal the livestock, if you're trying to do something. So they get very, very wary about people stepping on their property. Now we have to explain to this man what it is we're doing, right? Do we tell him we're filming a web series or a documentary on finding psychedelic mushrooms? Of course not. We tell him we're filming a documentary on agriculture in Costa Rica. So what he ends up telling us is that he can't allow us to go on the property, but if we wanted, we could go with him and he would introduce us to the owners. So that's what we did. So he ends up putting his horse away. We jump into his small, tiny little vehicle. It's just me, my producer, one camera person, and we leave everybody back at the back of the property. So he takes us to the owner. They're about 20 minutes away in this small little house, and we get to meet the wife of the owner of this property. So now we're trying to negotiate with her. She's very wary about letting us onto her property, and we had to tell her what we was doing. So again, we told her we was filming a documentary on agriculture in Costa Rica and livestock and stuff like that. And she said she would have to contact her husband to see if he would allow us to go on the property. At this point, I'm completely scared to death because we just trekked all this way, spent all this time and money to get to these pastures, and we might not even be able to get to go on. So she calls up her husband, gets the husband on the phone, and he tells us to come back mañana. Now, what people don't understand is in Costa Rica, they're called ticos. It's not a bad thing. That's just what Costa Ricans are called. They're called ticos. They're very laid back and chill people. So when they tell you mañana, mañana could mean tomorrow. It can mean 2 days from now, a week from now. So he tells us, come back mañana. I can't let that happen. We only have a limited amount of time here, and I need access to this property so we could search it, find what we need to find, and if we don't find it, move on to the next location. So I ask her if I could speak with her husband. I speak with him, offer him money, and because of the money, he lets us onto the property, which I was just absolutely ecstatic about. I could care less about the money. I just wanted access to this property.
So the owner of this cow pasture let us on. We had to pay them to get on, but that's perfectly fine. So now we got all the wild cows over here, and we're gonna start searching this entire ground. There's a lot of ground to cover, but hopefully we could find what we're looking for here. If we don't, we're gonna have to move on to the next one. So let's start looking right now.
Now, this property is absolutely ginormous. It's about 25 acres, and there's about 6 of us. So if we all split up, we could cover a good portion of this property, but we're not going to be able to cover everything. They only gave us the sundown to search the property, and we had to get moving. So they open up the gates, and we immediately start fanning out and searching this property. Now, when I go to a property this big, what we try to do is we search in a grid pattern. So we want people overlapping other people. So we want some people going vertically, some people going horizontally, and we start doing little sections at a time. That way we can try to cover it as efficiently as possible in the shortest amount of time as possible. After about 3 hours, we only covered about 2 acres of that property. It was just so massive.
All right, guys. We've been out here for a little bit of time. We still haven't found anything, but that doesn't mean we're gonna stop. Let's keep searching. There's a lot of ground to cover, and some of this grass is really tall, so we have to search really, really well. Look, come here, come check this out. So this can actually be mistaken as a caerulescens or a Psilocybe cubensis. Pull one up from the ground here.
Now, this mushroom tripped me up for a second. I definitely thought it was a caerulescens, but it ended up not being a caerulescens.
As you guys can see, the spore coloration is rust colored. Now, that's not uncommon with caerulescens and Psilocybe cubensis, but as you guys can see, there's no veil from where the cap broke. So it's definitely not a cubensis. Another thing you could tell is there's no bluing from the bruising from where we touch it or plucked it from the ground.
It was a really, really good candidate. It was growing out of an old manure pile. It had the coloration right, the size was right, but as soon as I got up on it, I could tell it wasn't a psilocybin mushroom, but this could definitely trip people up.
But just looking at it from afar, if you don't know what you're looking for, you could mistake this for a Psilocybe, or even the less educated on mycology can mistake this as a Psilocybe cubensis, but it isn't.
Now, at this point, we've been out here for hours. We haven't had no luck. Everybody's really hot and tired. It's about 100 degrees with the humidity.
We just need to keep searching because the grass is really high, but there's tons of manure all over the place. So this is prime location to find what we're looking for. So I'm gonna take a quick water break and a quick breather, and then we're gonna get back to it.
You know, everybody really needs a break. So they have a little creek on their property. We decide to take a water break and get inside the water and just get refreshed and go back and hit the property again. We searched another few hours. The sun started to go down and we needed to get out of there.
So unfortunately, we've been out here about 7 hours. We've combed through these cow pastures and we found a couple different types of mushrooms, but not the mushrooms that we came here looking for. That's all right. We still got plenty of time, but the sun isn't on our side. It's starting to get dark and we don't want to be out here at dark. We need to start to make it back to camp so that we're safe. We could bundle in, we could get something to eat. It's not planned out. This is the whole part of this. It's not just 1, 2, 3 and you're done. You find it when you find it. There's a lot of hours and work that goes into finding these mushrooms, and it's what makes it fun. It's part of the adventure. So let's start heading back to camp and I'll catch up with you guys over there.
So we packed up all of our gear. We thanked the property owner for allowing us to get access to their property. And then what we did was we headed back to the creek and we had a 2-hour trek back to the vehicles so we could load up and start heading to the next location. Now, one of the main reasons I came out here was to find some Psilocybe Aztec Quorum and some Psilocybe caerulescens. Now, these are two of the most oldest documented mushrooms that we probably have, to be honest with you. These were used by the natives of Costa Rica, Mexico, and all the other surrounding countries, and we have documented proof of that. You know, every time we think about mushroom history, we think of course, Terence McKenna, Maria Sabina. I mean, everything they gave to the psychedelic community. But at the end of the day, the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, they left us documented proof of use of psychedelics, and Psilocybe Aztec Quorum and Psilocybe caerulescens are some of the most documented. If you ask mycologists about the wavy caps of the Pacific Northwest, you know, Psilocybe sciences, you know, a lot of people will tell you that's the strongest, most potent psychedelic mushroom there is. But if you ask a lot of mycologists about Psilocybe caerulescens, they'll tell you that's the wavy cap of the tropics. They'll tell you it might be just as potent, if not more, than the Psilocybe sciences. You know, and that's really, really interesting. So what I want to do is find the wild sample, bring it back, HPLC it, and see how it compares to the Psilocybe sciences of the Pacific Northwest. Now, as we're driving to our next location, it starts downpouring again. At this point, it's a storm. We have a storm. We were gonna camp out for the night, but we don't wanna do that because of how heavy the rain is coming down. So I end up reaching out to one of the Tritian family members that actually has a property in the area, and he opens up his home to us, which was just absolutely amazing. So that night, I'm going to sleep and I hear a frog right outside the window, or what I think is a frog. So I go out there and this is what I find. This is a Bufo toad. So these toads are related to the Sonoran desert toad, you know, the toads that produce 5-MeO-DMT. Now, this specific Bufo toad might not be a DMT producing toad, but it does produce something, and what it does produce is poison, venom. Now, these toads are responsible for killing a lot of dogs, so a lot of Costa Ricans look at these toads as pests. It was still really, really cool to see, but you have to be extremely careful when you come in contact with them because that poison can make you really, really sick if it was to get into your bloodstream. So while I was laying in my bed that night, I knew if I wanted to find the Aztec Quorum and I wanted to find the caerulescens, I needed to start heading into the jungle. I knew that the cubensis and the Paleosciences were going to be really difficult to find because it was getting so hot during the day. So in order for us to find the caerulescens and the Aztec Quorum, we needed to start heading up in elevation and really get into the jungle. So of course, we couldn't do that on foot. We couldn't do that with the vehicles. So we needed to take a more authentic type of transportation. So we jumped on the horses and our guys took us up there. This was a long, long trek. It took hours just to get up to the elevation to where we could start finding the Aztec Quorum and the caerulescens. Now, Aztec Quorum usually starts growing around, anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 feet in elevation, but typically it's found closer to 8,000 to 10,000. So we figured we'd start a little bit lower, about 4,000 feet in elevation, and start working our way up and see what it gives us.
All right, guys, so as you've seen, we had about a 4-hour trek with the horses. We're up to about 4,000 feet in elevation. This is a good spot to start finding the caerulescens and the Aztec Quorum especially. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit the jungle trails over to the left, and we're just gonna hike down them and see what we find. I'm sure we'll find a bunch of cool fungi, and hopefully we find exactly what we came here looking for. Let's go.
So we started heading in. Now, when we first started heading in, we left the horses. It was wide, nice and open, and then it started to narrow up. The trails got a lot more narrow as we went higher, but we also seen that there was better and better chances of us finding the mushrooms we came here to find.
All right, guys, so we're going up these trails right now. Now, check this out. You guys see this grass right here? When you guys are looking for the caerulescens and the Aztec Quorum, this is exactly where you guys want to be looking. They'll usually grow around this grass and around the landslides, in the clay, the mud. That's the best place to find them. When you guys are looking for these mushrooms, you have to pay close attention. Sometimes they could blend in really, really good. Like I've always said, it's like finding the smallest needle in the world's biggest haystack. So you gotta be persistent and you really gotta be driven to do this. As you guys can see, we're going up these high elevations and we're doing all this crazy stuff just to get to the perfect location. So you really wanna take advantage when you get to them locations. All right, guys, so you see this clay right here, this giveaway? That's usually where you're gonna find the caerulescens, the Aztec Quorum, even some of the other rare species that actually do grow out here. They're usually gonna be growing from this clay right here. And as you guys can see, the clay's dry right now. So what I wanna do is I wanna move more into the forest where we're gonna have more moisture. It seems like it hasn't rained in about a day or so, because this is a little bit dried out and that's not the best conditions for the mushrooms we're looking for. So let's move more inside, and once we get inside, we should have better ground for finding these mushrooms.
Now, Costa Rica is really unique. As you guys seen, it was raining the past couple days we were driving, but just because it's raining where we're driving does not mean it's raining where we're gonna end up. You know, you could have pockets of precipitation in certain areas, and then you go 50 or 100 kilometers west or east, and it's not raining. They haven't gotten rain in days. It's very, very unique. So wherever you end up, it could be completely different from where you just was. You know, when the ground is really, really dry like that, it's very difficult to find mushrooms. You know, the mushrooms we're looking for could be up to 90% in moisture. So rain is a crucial factor that you need to have a flourishing population of fungi.
All right, guys, so as you can see, now we're getting into more forested areas, so we're gonna have to be careful because, as you guys know, there's poisonous snakes out here, venomous spiders, so you need to be really, really careful. There's also people that will rob you, and we have really nice camera equipment, so we need to be very, very careful.
All right, guys, so this one almost got me. I thought we found a caerulescens for a second. Look at this. But it's not. So what this is a form of Luso agaricus. Now, there's many different types. I'm not sure exactly which specific variant this one is, but these are very common mushrooms, and this can trip you up. This one right here got me. I seen this from above, and I definitely thought that this was a Psilocybe caerulescens for a quick second. All right, guys, this is really, really cool. Check this out. So if you guys are wondering if there's mushrooms in the area that you're searching, start looking at the leaves or the wood or stuff around there, and you'll start to see mycelium actually growing on the leaves and wood. So look at this. You guys could see that the mycelium has started colonizing this leaf right here. So this is a really, really good sign that there's mushrooms in this area. Anytime you guys are curious, if you're searching in the right area, start looking for little clues. But as we started to really push into the jungle, where it's really completely canopied by the jungle, it posed a whole new different buffet of obstacles. You know, it was slippery, it was muddy. You know, we're trying to make sure everyone's safe, that they don't fall off the side of a cliff. You also have to watch out for landslides. You know, sides of mountains could just completely wipe you away, and you can never be heard from again. So you could be hurt really, really fast just by an overlook. So you have to be really, really careful. So we kept pushing up. We found a bunch of cool mushrooms, but unfortunately we didn't find what we was looking for. And we're starting to lose sunlight again. So tomorrow's our last day, and we're gonna push up even higher and see what we can find. All right, guys, so it's the next day. As you've seen, yesterday was crazy. We tried to go up as far as we could, but we just lost the sunlight, and unfortunately we didn't find what we was looking for. But today we're gonna hit these trails right here. But I feel really good about today, so let's get going. We have a lot of ground to cover, and it's nice and early, so we should have a lot of hours of sunlight. Let's go. So we really started to push into the jungle. We had everybody looking, and shortly after we got into these really dense, muddy, slippery, wet trails, we had our first find. All right, guys, really cool find. We found our first Psilocybe. Now, this is a Psilocybe that we weren't even looking for. So this looks like it could either be a Psilocybe banlarensis or Psilocybe mexicana. I didn't know that these grow this far south, but this is definitely a Psilocybe, and the only way we're going to be able to tell exactly what it is by taking a spore swab. Now, normally I wouldn't do it on a fruit this small, but I'm going to try to get a sample because this could be documenting something that's never been found in this location. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out all the supplies just like before. We're going to take pictures, we're going to take measurements, we're going to document the soil type, the RH, the temperature, the longitude, latitude, and we're going to take a swab. Once we have the swab, we're going to keep pushing forward to look for exactly what we came here for. So we kept hiking up, we kept pushing forward. You know, it was early in the morning. We found this first one, and we was just absolutely thrilled. You know, if it would have stopped right here, I still would have considered this a success, but we're going to keep pushing forward. And as we trek about a half a mile further, we have our next hit, and this is what we came here looking for. Here we go. We found our Psilocybe caerulescens right here. This is so fucking exciting. We've been hiking all day, and we got a beautiful specimen right here. So come here and check this out. We got this beautiful caerulescens growing right here. Now the crazy thing is this is one growing all by itself. Absolutely amazing. If you guys can see, it's growing right out of the clay right here. Nice beautiful stem or stipe. So let's document this really, really quick. You know, I was just absolutely blown away. I knew just by looking at it that this was a Psilocybe caerulescens, but I wanted to be 100% sure. So we sequenced it and it was a Psilocybe caerulescens, which just completely made this entire trip worth it.
A lot of you guys at home might be asking, Willie, why don't you just take the mushroom, right? Just take it, print it, you'll be all set. The reason is you actually can't do that. You know, it's considered a felony. You could take a spore swab, you could take a spore sample, but once you actually harvest the cap, the stem, anything like that, it becomes harvesting psilocybin mushrooms, which is illegal, and you can't do that. Besides, I have to travel back into the States, and I don't want to get in trouble for something like that. So taking a spore swab is the right way to do it. So we just took our spore swab. We're gonna leave this fella here. That way he could drop his spores and produce more mushrooms eventually, and we're gonna keep going up the trail.
We was able to get a lot of spore samples from this caerulescens. We was able to pass them around. They're currently being cultivated, doing very, very well. And these spores should be available to everybody that wants them in the near future.
All right, guys. So a cool little find on our way up. We got a type of Ganoderma right here. Now, most people know the reishi type that they use for the medicinal benefits. This is also a reishi. It's a Ganoderma, but it's not the type of Ganoderma that you would see in supplements and stuff like that. This is more like we seen in Puerto Rico, the Ganoderma applanatum or something like that. And it's really cool. It's just a juvenile. I don't want to mess it up. But you guys, if you come close, you guys could see it right here. It's very, very young. And it's really cool. You know, these can also have medicinal benefits to them. Now, the specific variant, I'm not sure, but it's definitely a Ganoderma, very similar to the Ganoderma applanatum that we've seen in Puerto Rico.
This place is amazing. I feel like I really want to live here. I mean, it's an adventure every day. I mean, you could just go into your backyard, go and explore the country. There's so many things to see. If you've never been to Costa Rica, you definitely have to come here. I know, even if it's not for a fungi research expedition like we're doing, filming a show, but just to go, it's truly one of the most unique places and special places in the world. I've been to a lot of places. I don't think any of those places compare to Costa Rica. And, you know, if with our technology now, it's so awesome that I get to bring you guys with me. So we kept hiking for another couple hours. This next find just completely blew us away. We was not expecting this, yet we came across it, and I couldn't have asked for a better find.
What we found right now is absolutely amazing. This is a Psilocybe Neosalopensis, which is completely mind-blowing. We know they grow in Mexico, so they could grow as far south as the Costa Rican north. I'm just blown away. This is definitely, by the looks of it, a Psilocybe Neosalopensis, which is very closely related to the Psilocybe mexicana. Has a nice long stem with a beautiful bell cap. So come here, check this out. Look at that right there. Absolutely gorgeous. You couldn't ask for a more beautiful specimen. I'll bet money 100% that this is a Neosalopensis. All right, guys, usually I would take a spore swab, but since this one hasn't opened up all the way, I was trying to take the spore swab as gently as I could, and what ended up happening was it came out from the clay. So I thought I would just show you guys exactly what it looks like. Beautiful mushroom that I'm so blessed that we found. It's absolutely amazing.
We was able to take the spores and match them up, and this is a Neosalopensis. So this is a Psilocybe Neosalopensis. Now, Neosalopensis is an extremely cool mushroom. Like I said, it's very closely related to the Psilocybe mexicana. You got this big, long stem with a beautiful bell cap. As soon as you pluck it, as soon as it comes out, it starts bruising a nice dark blue right away. To my knowledge, from everything I was able to research, this is the first example of Psilocybe Neosalopensis in Costa Rica. I knew what we had just found was something really, really special. Alright guys, so we're actually losing sunlight as you guys can see, and we don't want to get trapped out here at night because as you guys seen, there's some pretty crazy animals out here in the jungle. All said and done, we had an amazing trip. We found our caerulescens. We found what I believe to be Psilocybe Neosalopensis down here in Costa Rica, which is, I think, unheard of. From what I know off the top of my head, I don't have internet service right now. I don't think there's been any found this far south. But I'm going to have to look into that. Regardless, we have a sample. We're going to be bringing it back. All in all, it's just been an absolutely amazing, amazing trip. We didn't find our Aztec Quorum, but eventually on one of these trips, we will. So let's start heading back. I can't wait to take a nice hot shower, lay in a good bed, and reunite with my trip team family because honestly, I miss you guys. So let's get out of here. We got a long trek back, and it's gonna take us about a day to trek back, get to the airport, get out of here. So let's get going. So we start heading back. We gotta trek down. We have a long trek ahead of us so that we can get back home. And as we're trekking down the same exact trail we came up, my producer tells me, Willie, I found a mushroom. This is so exciting. Just when I thought it was over, it's not over. Check this out right here. This is amazing. I think this might be our Aztec Quorum right here. Now, it's definitely a Psilocybe, and it has the characteristics of an Aztec Quorum, but we won't know until we get it in the lab and check it out under the scope. We need to see the spore size, we need to see their shape, all that stuff. But this is definitely a Psilocybe right here, and I believe it to be the Aztec Quorum. So come here, let me get you guys a nice close shot of this. Look at that right there. Absolutely amazing. You couldn't ask for a better color. Just look at that. That beautiful caramel color. Absolutely amazing. This is so exciting. Alright guys, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna document this the same exact way. We're gonna take pictures so we can get reference shots of its size. We're gonna document longitude, latitude. We're gonna take a spore sample. And this is really important. Eventually, if you guys wanna cultivate them either outdoors where you live or indoors, you have to know the soil composition because that's gonna help you make a substrate that's suitable for that specific mushroom. So that's why we always take a small soil sample, so that way we could actually break it down and see what the soil is composed of, so we could try to recreate it the best we can. We walked right by it and we only seen it coming back. It makes it really difficult because there's a lot of, nuts from the trees and different things that could resemble a mushroom. So you're looking at these thinking it's a mushroom and it ends up turning out being a nut. So she actually thought it was a nut, and when she got close, she seen it was a mushroom, and it turned out to be one of the mushrooms what I think to be one of the mushrooms we came here looking for. Definitely a Psilocybe. What type of Psilocybe, we won't know till we get back in the States. So when I seen it, it hit all the characteristics of the Psilocybe Aztec Quorum. I thought this was a Psilocybe Aztec Quorum. It turned out to be a Psilocybe caerulescens. Just like the other one we found, growing all by itself, which is really, really strange to see them growing all by themselves. Usually you'll see them growing with a few other in a cluster. It's very, very rare you see them growing all by themselves. Maybe this was just coincidental, or maybe somebody else has hit this trail before us, took the mature fruits, and then left the immature fruits behind, and that's what we're here collecting now. When it was all said and done and we made it back home and we was able to sequence everything and match up spores to known samples that we currently have in the library or from other universities or other people, we was just absolutely blown away. We found 2 Psilocybe caerulescens in 2 different areas, which is just amazing. Right now we're running HPLC on them, which is high pressure liquid chromiograph. We're gonna see what the potency is compared to that of the Pacific Northwest Psilocybe sciences. We're gonna see if they compare. And then of course, the cream of the crop, the one that I did not come here looking for, would have never thought I would have found it here, but definitely the gem of this trip is the Psilocybe Neosalopensis. which is just absolutely mind-blowing that we found one in Costa Rica. This might be the first reports of one this far south that we know of. We're still looking into it. We're reaching out to other mycologists. We reached out to UC Berkeley and a couple other schools that have dedicated mycology programs, and we're trying to see if there's any reports of a Neosalopensis being found that far south. If you're a mycologist and you have any information on that, forward it to us, send it to us, because we're really interested on where yours was found and how many have been found in that area. Psychedelic mushrooms are playing such a big part in our culture right now, you know, in the medicinal field, in the scientific field, and just culture in general. You know, these mushrooms are helping so many people all around the world every single day and have been for generations. It's so important we bring awareness to their potential and their uses, and that we could get that stigma of drug away from these. You know, these help so many people. These have been spiritual tools that grow from the earth. You know, they're not made in labs or anything like that. These grow from the earth. So for you to criminalize nature is just absolutely ridiculous. That's like criminalizing the water or the sky or trees. You can't do stuff like that. These substances, these mushrooms, cannabis, DMT, these things have been around longer than religion itself. So for us to come along eons later and criminalize nature, something that has been here way before us, is just absolute stupidity. I wouldn't change what I do for anything in the world. I absolutely love it. I know what I do makes a difference in the world, and I'm hoping what I do and showing what I do inspires many others to go out there and do the same thing. I'm Willy Myco. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this adventure. There's many more to come. I can't wait to show you guys what we have in store, but I want to thank you guys for coming along with me on this journey to find these amazing fungi in Costa Rica. Now, what I say next, I truly want you to hear every single word and take it to heart. Do good, be good, live good. Namaste.